Hey everybody, welcome back. Honored to have one of my mentors and good friends here with me and Scott today, Mr. Steve Chater. Steve has been not only a friend but a business partner for years, and we're blessed that we have him today. He is the co-author of a New York Times best-selling book called Hold.
Which is the first time for this pod. This is the first time we have had a New York Times best-selling author on the State 48.
Kind of a big deal.
Well, I got to correct you. I don't think it was New York Times, but it was a national bestseller on Amazon, other places, but I don't think it was New York Times.
Well, we can say it was.
Okay.
Hey, remember if the story's
Thanks,
good,
guys.
remember if the story's good enough, the facts don't matter. So just teasing. But no, Steve has been, like I said, a friend and mentor for years. I always looked up to Steve as he built a big business and then ultimately also a large property management business, and really has spent a lot of his time and career really helping educate people on how to build wealth, through home ownership, and then expand beyond that and build it through investment properties. And,
right.
One of those things that I always kind of laugh, I always feel like, hey, I have this idea, I have this thing for you. We have this way to, own a house and have someone else pay it off. Are you interested? And it's like, what? It's too good to be true. It's like, yep, that's called investment. That's called rental properties.
Yeah.
And I know for me personally, I've had them for years, started buying in 2001. It's been a game changer, life changer for me. It's really part of retirement and passive income. And Scott, I know we've actually invested together and have one using a tool that Steve helped share with us on self-directed IRA, which we just had a podcast on that.
Yeah, and it was, we were sitting in a workshop that you were doing, Steve, and, we were joking, we've got these IRAs that we need to do something with, and we're joking, okay, we're going to have some little hokey properties with it, and then, like, right away you go, and just so you know, there's ways that people can pool their IRAs together, and we looked at each other and just smiled, and it was really a matter of days at that point, too, that we went that direction.
And the joke turned into reality.
Yeah, it did.
Huh? Yeah.
Or the aha, right? So, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you know what's interesting about that? As you were talking, I was thinking, this is how our country got founded. And so when we did the western expansion of our country, and we went into Ohio and Michigan and all the way to the western United States, they were on purpose to make sure that private ownership of real estate was the way it went. The state could not own the real estate. Mm-hmm. And they split it up into, if I remember correctly, it was like 40-acre parcels. And they were giving real estate to people. Why? Because that's how wealth got created. So from the very beginning of our country, the ownership of real estate is the foundation of building wealth. When South Africa switched from apartheid, and they tried to figure out, well, what do we do now that things have changed? Number one thing was to give people their private ownership of land. So real estate is the foundation.
Well, it makes sense that it's one of those, education things that most of us need to get first. And I think that's what you've done such a great job of, writing books and breaking it down to make it simple. A lot of our, parents and parents beyond never bought rentals. The goal was to pay off your house. That's
right.
what they were taught.
That's right.
And then you learn leverage and what kind of dead money looks like, meaning equity, and how to make your money work for you instead of you always working for your money. So the first step really is getting educated, see if it's a good fit for you, which, we got a great copy of the book here for those that are interested with Hold.
Yeah, that's the name of the book.
And so...
You know why? You know why we called it Hold?
I think I'm about to find out.
Yeah, okay. Because we started with the book called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And we talked about the different ways that people approach it and whether they're a speculator or whether they're a collector because I'm going to buy, hey, look at this nice place that I've got, or whether they're an observer, which means I'm watching other people do it, but I don't do it myself, or an investor. An investor's intentional about, I'm going to own this because this is what it does for me. That was The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And so then the next book came out and it's called Flip, because they were doing TV shows on flipping houses and look at all the money you can make on flipping houses. But flipping houses is not investing. That's an extra business that you can make money at if you're good at it. So our book was called Hold because we went from the millionaire investor to, wait a minute, flip isn't the right answer. Holding the property is the right answer. That's where it came from.
Well, and everybody's answer is different. That's what's exciting about today's real estate world is there's so many choices and options in it. And, for some people, flipping is a great short term, and you make your cash and move on.
Right, so we say it's a business. It's not
a
an
business,
investment.
but building wealth and holding real estate is truly what gives you that foundation.
Right.
And I think it's such a unique tool. I remember my first investment property was a small condo out in the East Valley. It was like $50,000 at the time back in the day, and it was scary to have a second home. And what if you have vacancy? And what if all these? And you what if yourself right out of the opportunity? But everyone I've known that's gone for it is now can't wait to tell other people about it.
Well, that's when people ask the what if question, it's the next part of the question, right? Because so you're talking about what if it doesn't work? What if? The question was, what if it does work?
Right.
Right? And we tend to stop ourselves with that question of what if it doesn't work? When there's answers to that, isn't there?
Absolutely. And it's an interesting investment vehicle because it's one of the few out there that if you want to buy $300,000 worth of real estate, you don't have to have $300,000. But if I wanted $300,000 of, say, Apple stock or whatever, just say in the stock market, I have to have $300,000.
Right. So $1 worth of stock costs you $1.
Yes.
$1 worth of real estate costs you 20 cents.
Yep.
And then you borrow 80 cents, but guess what? You can have somebody else pay for it for you.
Right.
It's like, hello.
Yep. And that's the exciting part. I think that's why the barrier of entry is really just people getting educated first, understand how it works, have a little bit of reserves. And then, the key too that I've found, and I know, I've watched you teach it in classes and we've seen it, is having that team around you, right? So who's helping find the property, who's maintaining the property, who's managing the property. There's, understanding, putting an LLC and the tax side of it. The great news is you don't have to know all the hows when you have the who's that are out there that can help guide you through those options.
It's interesting, Kenny. We wrote our book as a self-help book. And so we said, how do you find this? How do you buy it? And we went all the way through managing it. And then the last part of the book was growing it, but it was a self-help type book. Here's how you do it if you're going to do it on your own. But all the way through, we said, you want to do it on your own? You can, but you want to go and you want to be actually impactful with it, make a significant difference, you need to have a team around you. Where do you find the property if you don't have the team to bring it to you? Are you going to take on a part-time job to find it when somebody else has a full-time job that's going to find it before you? Right? And then how do I know if this is a good one? And what do I do if I've got a problem and I can't get it rented? I was talking to some people that read the book and were sitting on the beach, and they bought a property down here in Arizona City. And she was of a mind to say, and I forget what the exact number was, but I think they were asking $1,350 for rent on this property. And they didn't have any takers on it, but she was not going to drop the rent. And I said, the reason you don't have any takers on it is because they're renting someone else's property and not yours. And so what would happen if you dropped it $50? Dropped it $50 and rented the property in 3 days. Right? So it sometimes takes somebody else to get you out of your own mindset and out of your own predilections.
Get you out of your own way.
Yeah, exactly. And so boom. And so I saw her not too long after that, and she's excited. Oh, we got a renter for it. Guess what?
Well, that's the difference of hiring a professional is they get paid to not be emotional. They get paid to help you make a good business decision, and the right professionals care about the long-term relationship of helping you build wealth. I mean, it's really in our why, our mission statement is, to help people achieve the American dream and build wealth through home ownership, only from experiences that we've had and been doing it for, 20 years now myself. And it's been absolutely amazing. And then you find all these other ways to leverage off of that. And I'll tell you, the rental market, people have, well, what if it sits vacant, like you mentioned? What if the market goes down? I could have sold my house for more. Well, look, I personally lived it. Mine went all the way down from all the way up from 05, 06. It was like, oh my gosh, these things are great, to all of a sudden half price.
Kenny, it's real estate.
And
it's always two things. It's price and condition. If it's in good condition and your price too high, nobody's going to rent it. If it's not in good condition and it's priced too high, nobody's going to rent it. Turn that around and say you got it priced right and it's in good condition, it's going to rent, and it's always going to rent. Doesn't matter what the market is.
Well, that was my point, was that through all of that, didn't matter what the values did, only if I sold it.
Exactly.
And if I held it, which is the book, hold,
Right.
we just wrote it back up, and then you look back 10 years later now, and you go, man, they're either paid off or paid all the way down, and now I have equity positions and potentially, refi line. I mean, you have more cash now available.
But all that time when it had gone down and then came back up for a rental, it's also providing cash flow. So you have the home value, but you also have cash flow coming in from the rents.
So, when property values went down, you know what went up? Rents, because we had more and more people in the market that didn't own a property, didn't want to own a property, they wanted to rent, and the rents were starting to go up. It's simple supply and demand. Yeah,
we did numbers in Augusta Ranch a couple years ago, that just looking at just stabilizing your home payment. Mm-hmm. And we looked at 15 years ago and what the mortgage was, and it was $700-800, and what it was today for those same people, $700-800.
Right.
Rent was about the same, $850 back then, a little bit higher than the mortgages were, and then it had climbed up, doubled it, and that was a couple years ago. It's gone up significantly more since, and so the rents will continue to climb.
And by the way, rents follow the interest rates. And so as the interest rates go up, so I've been doing this for almost 45 years. And always when we see the interest rates go up, that means the cost of ownership goes up because of the interest rates. And the rent typically follows the interest rates. So it's kind of a safe haven for you when you're doing that. I think one of the big things for people as they're listening to us is, you know what, I got money in the stock market, or I'm using my 401k, or I'm using my IRA, or not sure how to get started in investing in real estate. We're all sitting here saying we've already done it.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing to do. And that's what we tell people. I think the purpose for the book Hold was, what is the safe way to do it? What is the secure way to do it so that the what if questions are all answered? Any of the negative what if questions are all answered. How do I do it safely? How do I do it securely? And how do I do it, I'll use another S word and say smartly, right? And get involved in investing in real estate. I was talking to a guy that invests in the stock market, and he has a couple of, for my wife and I. And I said, what is the average that you can expect if you're investing in the stock market long term? Because they say, don't just buy in and out, don't day trade, invest for the long term. And I said, I've heard it's 8 to 10% is what you could expect over the long term. And he said, well, actually for the past 20 years, it's been closer to 6%. Well, investing in real estate in Phoenix, Arizona, because the rents have been going up, even with the increase in the prices that we've had, the rents have been going up as faster than the prices are. And so it's not difficult at all to get an 8, 10, 12, 15% return on investment. Almost pick a house, any house that you want to look at. And think about the people that have owned houses over the last year. So, we use the Cromford Report to see what's happening in the market. And depending on the price range that you're in, Phoenix real estate has gone up between 25 and 30% in this last year, 12-month period of time. Okay. So, what's 30%? Well, if it was a $300,000 house, that means it went up $100,000 this year just because you owned it. And somebody else is paying for that for you. Now, I don't think it's going to continue at that rate, but why has it gone up like that? Because we have people moving here. Number one city that people are moving here from is Los Angeles. Number 2 is San Francisco. Number 3 is Chicago. Number 4 is Seattle. We're seeing all these other large cities that people are choosing to leave there and to move here. And Maricopa County in this last year is the number 1 county in all of the country for population growth.
Well, not only population, but we've also seen major companies relocate here. I mean, hundreds and hundreds. I mean, we've got a new Facebook data center being built here right now. Apple's out here. So
Google will be building
We're seeing
soon.
Google. We're seeing just a lot of companies because of the affordability for their employees
The whole environment.
is unbelievable. I
Right.
know there's a new tech company competing with Intel going out on the West Valley. So you've just got, we have a lot of land still. We can still move outward. And so we're going to continue to see that. And I think the other thing that really validates the Phoenix market, at least for me, is that we're seeing the institutional buyers back in the markets again. And these are hedge funds that have Wall Street money, lots of money, and their hedges in real estate versus the stock market in a lot of cases,
Right.
because of the consistency to it. The markets take longer to move up and down, but they don't care because even if the market goes down, value of the home, they're still collecting rent.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, and we have one right here at Hawes in Guadalupe, and I know there's another one going on at Ellsworth and like University for those
Ellsworth
out in the East
University,
Valley,
right.
is these entire subdivisions that are just single family homes
Right.
for rent.
You can't buy a house there.
You can't buy it. It's all for rent. If that doesn't tell you that the smart money and these investors that are true investors, I mean, these guys are sharp. They have teams built around them.
That's why they call it the smart money, right?
To go out and do it. It's if that doesn't tell you, guys, why aren't I getting a piece of this when I could just buy my 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you can do? And I always tell people, like, the first one's always the hardest, right? Because you're learning, you're getting educated, you're building your team. It is 2, 3, and 4 honestly move pretty quickly,
Right.
Or at least your confidence level goes up.
Right. It's easier to say yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. So as long as you got the right people moving you in the right direction, it all starts with the goal, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It's like, what is it that you want to achieve? And, I was doing a couple of seminars and I asked people, how does the word wealth resonate with you? In asking that question, what I found was most people think of wealth as Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or Trump or whoever it is, the billionaires, right?
1%, yeah.
And they don't think of themselves as being able to achieve that. However, other people are interested in financial security, and that's really what we're talking about. When we talk about wealth, we mean, they don't necessarily have to work for a living in order to continue to maintain their lifestyle. Well, how do they make that happen? And real estate's a very effective way to make that work. Can I share with you a quick story?
Yeah, go ahead. Of course, that's why we're here.
So just before I came in here, I'm talking to an insurance agent, and he says, I only have one other property that I'm renting out, and it's a duplex, and it's in the Seattle area. And because it's in the Seattle area, they say you can't raise your rent on any existing renter. And so the rental laws are way more strict in other places than they are here, favoring the tenant as opposed to the owner. So both of his people moved out this year. They'd been in there for 8 years. Both of his people moved out, and he re-rented each one of those units for an extra $600 a month. And he was talking about, that's an extra $1,200 a month that I don't have to go out and make, is what he said to me, right? And, of course, it's been a good investment for. I asked him if he wanted to sell it, and he said no.
Well, I think that's the thing is, we all work for our wages and get up and trade time for, our checks and go to work. The nice thing is when you're sleeping, you're still making money.
Right.
And it's just, you got your money working for you instead of you working for your money all the time. And
The other people don't think about with that is they don't think about the fact that not only are you making a positive cash flow, but they're paying off the mortgage for you. Every month they're putting hundreds of dollars towards the mortgage, and we don't see that, so we don't feel it necessarily, but that's a big deal.
It's really big, and I guess that was kind of my point with it, is that you can be out on vacation, you can be sleeping, you can be working at your job, you could be doing whatever, and that machine is still running all the time because it's a business and someone's paying it down. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we're talking about a lot of the upside that, there's, you got an AC unit goes out, you've got, maintenance to a property. That's why we encourage you to get home warranties and renew those things to protect your investment.
Right.
And I've had several of them, and I've had very few incidents. I always believe if you have a good property, you treat people right, you get repairs done promptly,
right.
You answer calls, all the fundamental things in life that, a lot of property management companies don't do, or more importantly, individual owners who try to not do property management.
Right.
That's where we tend to find the problems. Even when someone's thinking about renting, I'm like, well, is it a property management company? Who has it? Because there's so many scams and gimmicks out there right now for people. It's scary.
Right. We've seen, especially if you find properties on Craigslist
Yes,
or
those-
places like that.
Where I'm out of the country, but there's a key, like go ahead, send the check here.
Right.
It's very scary. But as far as the horror stories, I mean, I know they're out there for people, but there's also winners in Vegas, and not everybody
let's
wins,
switch
right?
gears on that a minute, okay? Because you said something that keeps ticking in my mind, and you said, it takes $1 to buy $1 worth of stock. So let's say you want to buy you want to have $200,000 invested. How long would it take you to save $200,000? Right? How many years would it take you to
years.
save $200,000? On the other side of the coin, you could own that piece of real estate for $20,000 to $40,000 down. How long would it take you to get the $20,000 to $40,000 as opposed to the $200,000 that you hope continues to grow and build for you? But in the meantime, with much less money going in to that real estate investment, you're already invested in the market and the property values going up.
Right. And even if values go down, you're still collecting rent, so you just hold it longer, right? You can't
Right.
lose money as long as you don't sell. You just hold it till the next cycle if that happens.
Yep.
But in the Phoenix market specifically, we have more people moving here than moving out. The entry-level homes, we know those prices have gone up significantly.
Yeah.
But everybody you see, everybody in every vehicle, every mall, anywhere you go needs a roof over their head. So they're either owning or renting. There's only two choices.
But you look at some of the places that you had cited as big places people are coming from,
Right.
LA, San Francisco, Seattle. There's a lot of renting going on in those areas. And so even some of the people that are coming in here just have a history of being renters. And
Well, and many of the people that are coming, they're starting families. Families are getting bigger. Living in an apartment complex is not optimal for what they want to have. So owning single-family homes, that's what we're promoting in the book. A single-family home or a duplex, triplex, fourplex. If you're owning one of those, then number one, it's more liquid. Number two, so that if you did want to sell it, which there's no reason to sell a property. Right now, with the 1031 exchange, you might exchange it for something more productive, but there's no reason to sell a property. So what we're seeing this demographic of people, more and more people, which goes to what you said about the smart money, building houses for rent. You can't buy them. Building whole subdivisions and just for people to rent the houses. Why? Because that's where people want to live as opposed to having the noisy neighbor next door.
Well, and think about, we just came out of, or still in, I guess, technically, but I mean, out of a COVID market in 2020 where you were locked down. And I think that's where a lot of people's aha was, okay, we got to get out of this apartment. We don't have a yard. Where can we go? And so that getting into a home, whether home ownership or renting, there's demand there.
Right.
And I think we're going to continue to see that. People aren't going to forget this for a while, no matter what. So.
That's for sure. You and I have a friend, Nathan, up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and he was telling us that everybody was leaving Boston because it was too crowded, and they couldn't get enough houses in that area because the people were trying to get out of the congestion. Because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it here. The second home market has exploded here in the Phoenix market with, Pine Top, Show Low, Flagstaff, Heber, like all those communities, because people are, they have equity for one, and two is we want a safe place. And I think equity is the other big thing that people don't realize. I've had more conversations recently because the average, and I know Craig has the stats, but I think it's 154,000 or something is the average equity position that people have currently because of the run up in the market.
That's probably bigger than their IRA.
It's true. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and yet people don't realize, what gets people in trouble is then using that as an ATM and buying consumer products that end up in a landfill within the next 2 years or so, right? The big, fancy TVs and the
Or
cars.
thinking that it's not money.
Or thinking that it's not.
Right. It's equity, and I can sacrifice some of my equity, and they don't think of the equity as the same as the money they had in the bank.
Or and that's the point with it is, I mean, you can you could refi out 20% to put down for another house, and all of a sudden you still have a great mortgage payment, and now you have cash flow, and you have someone else paying it off, and you don't have this dead money. You have it working for you.
Right.
You don't see banks just hold on to cash; they re-lend it back out
as quick as you deposit it.
quick
Right.
as you deposit it. They're sending it back out. I think the equity position, I'm not saying people should get themselves in trouble. And the good news is the banks are much, more strict on rules today than we were back when people were using them as ATMs, their houses, right?
Right.
Every month you could pull out another 10, 20 grand. But a lot of people don't realize, where am I going to get the money to buy an investment property? I don't have 20% on a $400,000 or $300,000 house.
That's right.
And we know there's a lot of solutions, but I think equity is in your primary is potentially one of those, and you're writing off the interest and the certain things, but it gives you the opportunity to get in without having to go find a bunch of cash or wait to accumulate it.
Yeah. You know, you started this and we were talking about the fact that people don't really have a financial mindset. We haven't been taught that kind of thing unless that was something that they focused on. And so the key to all of this is knowing what your return on investment is. So the money you have sitting in the bank is going to make you what, 0.5% interest? That's the return on investment that you're getting from it.
If you subtract inflation, no, you're actually losing money. But yeah,
that's right. And people don't understand inflation either because it's financial intelligence. And the issue in financial intelligence is paying attention to what the actual return on investment is. So I shared the statistic before that it's around 6% that you can expect from the stock market. That's the return on investment, right? If we bought a house and that house never went up in value, but all somebody did was pay off the mortgage for us, that's over an 8% return on investment. And that's a real estate investment you probably wouldn't want to make, but it beats out the stock market. And people don't pay attention to the return on investment. So when you pull out equity like you're talking about, the equity is sitting there, it's dead. It's not doing anything. It's not making any money for them. Can they invest it positively, get a return on investment for it, and acquire other assets? That's putting your money to work for you instead of you working for money.
Well, the big difference, I think, between when we say stocks is that you could lose all of it, all gone. And with a house, you have a potential cyclical cycle that values may go up and down, but it never goes to zero.
That's true.
And so I think that's a big difference for people when you're about that want to play a little bit safe or a little conservative is housing we've seen it go up and down. Most people, if, depending on how old you are, you've seen it go up and down more than once. And it's part of the process. But if you keep renter in there and you take care of them and you charge a fair rent, one of the things I learned early on, actually I was still working at FedEx back in the day, was a guy owned 48 properties and a buddy of his, and so I got to meet him, and he did it full time. That's all he did was manage his properties. But his dad helped him at 18 buy his first one. And he just understood. But one thing he said to me I never forgot was make it where they can't afford to leave. And that always stuck with me is have a great property and keep it fair where they're not looking over their shoulder, looking at the other opportunities. Because 1 month of vacancy deletes any kind of $50 or $100 raise in
monthly rent increase.
If it sits empty for 1 month or 2 months.
Right.
So it's just...
Well, that's why, again, you need... There you go.
Education.
You're talking about this guy that helped you think differently than what you're thinking. That's why you need a team, right? To help monitor and say, well, what's our goal? How do we get you to that goal? And that's why we wrote the book. The book was written specifically, how do we do it the safe way? How do we do it securely? How do we make it so that everybody can get in this game? Because too many people think they can't. I know when I was 26 years old and I got my real estate license was when things started to shift for me because I always thought real estate was something the other people did. The older people, my parents did it, and that was my mindset until I started looking around and going, oh, wait a minute, there's other people that are 26 years old that are buying. Oh, maybe I better start thinking about it, right? You got to have somebody else change your mindset.
Well, I think that's what the book does, and you've mentioned is kind of that you're investing in yourself at that point because you're reading and getting educated and see, is this a right fit for me and my family? It may not be for everybody. Some risk tolerances, whatever reasons, we get it. But if you don't know, that's what's hurting you. So get the information, and the book is written so simply. There's graphs. It takes you through a process to say, does this look like something that I should take the next step and go forward?
Well, thanks for plugging the book. I appreciate that. You can get it on Amazon. Okay.
And I'm looking at several copies here in our office. So for any of our listeners that are interested, we might even be able to get an autographed copy for that.
Oh, yeah. So, we could make that work. What do you think? Yeah. So, the other thing, too, is if you listen to books, there's an Audible copy as well. So
it's an exciting journey. And I think, for people out there listening that either own investment property, you get it, but there's a chance to even get better and accelerate that for people who are just dipping their toe in the water, wondering, is this for me? It's an easy enough read. It's written to be understood by the masses, and it really lays out a formula for success and then how to build your team to go out and execute this strategy.
Right.
Yeah, State 48 Homeowner podcast, I think a lot of people just go, oh, homeowner, that's the place that I'm living in.
No.
But there's a lot of opportunity.
You can own your house and other people's houses too.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that was a lot for today.
Would you be willing to come back and join us sometime again?
How much is it worth to you?
No, I appreciate your time and wisdom. I mean, that's one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older is wisdom, right? And trusting those proven sources and proven models. And you've successfully done that personally and professionally and have a large property management business to go with that because of the passion. It grew into other opportunities. And that's what I see a lot of times for people is that first property, they look back and go, I should have done that 5 years earlier because here's now what it has unlocked in my life, and it's created these 3 new opportunities.
It's been a privilege for me. Guys, we manage about 650 single-family homes right now, plus commercial properties. But the 650 single-family homes, it's been a privilege to be able to help people build wealth with real estate, to help them manage their real estate assets. And we've had people that so talk about hold. We have people that have held their properties for 20 to 30 years here in Phoenix. And one last quick story, but we had a guy who somebody called him up and said, hey, you should sell your property. You can't believe how much equity you had. And so he sold the property. He didn't contact us until afterwards when he said, you know what? The guy never told me about how much tax I was going to have to pay, that I was going to have to recapture my depreciation. So I have my money in the stock market at Edward Jones, but I can't make as much as what I was making on that property. I wish I'd have never sold it.
Yep. And we hear that a lot. And that's where, our approach is a very educational consulting role for our clients. One of the reasons we've started this podcast is we have so many of these great conversations at the office or with each other, our peers that are in the industry. It was like, well, but we're serving people and we want them to build wealth and it helps
to be a part of the conversation.
And honestly, it helps grow their portfolio. And then the byproduct of that is then people share, hey, you got to talk to these guys because here's how I got started. Here's what helped me. But we're doing it. So we're living it. We're not selling a product that we aren't living and part of. But I really do think that, I wish